I nearly met myself. Alright, this happened about 2 months ago, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. After stumbling across these glitch in the Matrix videos that keep coming up on YouTube, I thought I'd share it with you all. I've got no explanation, maybe one of you does. I need to know if anyone else has ever had something like this happen. I work a pretty boring 9-to-5 job in a mid-sized office building. Every day, I go to the same coffee shop across the street around 2 p.m. for my caffeine fix. I'm such a regular that the barista, Sam, automatically starts making my order when he sees me in line. On this particular day, I left my office a little later than usual, around 2:15. When I reached the door in the lobby, I realized I'd left my keycard on the desk on the other side of the building. But that was no problem. The secretary, Sarah, signed me out on paper. This happens all the time. As I crossed the street and approached the coffee shop, I saw myself, me, wearing the same clothes, same bag, same everything, standing at the counter inside, chatting with Sam. I froze. My heart was racing, but my brain was like, no, you're imagining this. Maybe it's just someone who looks like you. But then this other me turned slightly and I got a perfect look at their face. It was my face. I panicked. I turned around and walked back across the street without going inside. My hands were shaking. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that I must have been overtired or something. But here's the thing. When I got back to my desk and looked in my bag, the coffee cup was there. The exact same coffee I was planning to order, with my name written on it in Sam's handwriting. I never went into the shop. I never bought the coffee. There it was, hot and fresh like I'd just picked it up. I looked up at the clock, and the time was still 2:15, the usual time I'd get back after heading over and grabbing my coffee. But I'd definitely been outside for longer than a minute. It was like my timeline diverged. One version of me had split away at 2 p.m. and gone to grab the coffee while I had stayed behind. And then when returning to the building, our timelines had merged again. Even scarier than this thought was which one had I been at the time? Was I the original me? Or was I some kind of duplicate for that time? I spent the rest of my workday just feeling very off about the whole thing. I didn't even drink the coffee. It got me to wondering about the stories of doppelgangers I've heard of in the past, and I had to wonder, is this where some of those came from? Maybe 2 timelines split or converge and you can be in 2 places at once for a short time. I wonder how many times this sort of thing happens without you even noticing. I haven't told anyone at work because, let's be real, they'd think I'm insane. But the secretary at the office does remember me heading out, and she remembers me having forgotten my keycard. But she says it happened at 2 and it even says so on the log where she signed me out. I've gone back to the coffee shop since and everything's been normal, though weirdly enough, Sam didn't remember me coming. The next day when I went to grab my coffee, he asked if I'd been off sick the day before. So, if he never gave me a coffee that day, where did the coffee in my bag come from? Some parallel universe that collided with this one for a split second? How can him and Sarah both remember things so differently? Which one of these is even real? I don't know. But I still have the cup. I wrote on it in red marker, this came from nowhere. It's in my kitchen cupboard now. I keep checking on it just to remind myself that I didn't imagine the whole thing. What the hell happened? Any ideas? This happened about 2 weeks ago and I still can't wrap my head around it. I live in a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just a single bedroom unit with a decent view of the street below. I have a pretty mundane routine. Wake up, go to work, come home and occasionally binge a TV series. But this kind of broke my reality. It started with a mug. You know those novelty mugs that you get from gift shops? Mine said, "World's Okayest Programmer." It was a joke from my friend Sarah, and I've had it for years. Every morning I drank coffee from it while scrolling through my phone. It's like clockwork. That morning I reached into the cabinet, grabbed my mug, and poured myself a cup of coffee. As I turned to the counter to add sugar, I froze. My mug was already sitting there, filled with coffee, steam curling up like it had just been poured. I stared at it for a good 10 seconds, then looked back at the mug in my hand. It was identical. Same chip on the handle, same slight discoloration at the rim. I put the mug I was holding on the counter beside the other one and stepped back. 2 mugs. The same mug. I felt like I was in some bizarre magician's trick. I thought maybe I'd forgotten pouring the coffee, maybe I was sleepwalking. But that didn't explain the second mug. I only owned one. I've lived in this apartment for 5 years and I've only ever had one World's Okayest programmer mug. I grabbed my phone to take a picture, but when I turned back, there was only one mug, the one I'd originally grabbed from the cabinet. The other one was gone, just gone. I spent the rest of the day questioning my sanity. Did I imagine it? Maybe I was more tired than I thought, but things got weirder that night. Around 10 p.m, I was sitting on the couch watching a rerun of some random sitcom when I heard a thud from the kitchen. My heart jumped into my throat because I live alone, so any unexpected noise feels amplified. I grabbed a heavy flashlight I keep by the door and crept into the kitchen. To my complete surprise, the World's Okayest programmer mug was lying on the floor. It was intact, but somehow warm, like it had just been used. The weirdest part, the cabinet door was wide open, and I swear I'd closed it after breakfast. Now I'm just wondering, is this some kind of elaborate prank, or is my reality glitching? I haven't used the mug since. It's sitting in a box under my bed. I'm a student advisor for online students who are pursuing master's or doctoral level degrees. I work strictly with online students, therefore all of their exams are hosted online. These online exams come with a slew of inevitable technical issues. My Wi-Fi went out, my computer broke, etc. We have a tracking document where we list all of the technical issues that come in. Whether the student calls, emails, or texts, every case related to any given exam is tracked in a special tab specific for each exam. I'm the only person who touches this document, as I am the sole student advisor for this particular cohort of students. Today, they had an exam. I opened up the document and navigated to the tab for today, and was surprised to see that a tech case was already listed. But the exam hadn't happened yet, so the tech case listed should be blank. I deleted the tech case because I figured I must have goofed up and entered the case on the wrong tab. Before I deleted the case, I made a mental note of what I read, thinking it was really odd. The case was a simple one for a man in the cohort named Kyle. It said, called the student at 11:20 a.m. because he hasn't signed into the exam yet. Student signed in to the exam while I was leaving a voicemail. So here is where the glitch happened. I always call students 20 minutes after the start time if they haven't logged in yet to make sure they didn't forget about the exams. It happens to usually one person per exam. Today there was only one person who hadn't started the exam by 20 minutes after, and you can guess who it was, Kyle. I couldn't help but realize that the tech case I'd read that morning could have been a glitch, a premonition of sorts. I decided to put it to the test. Instead of calling Kyle, I went to the kitchen to grab a glass of water. I wanted to test and see if he would start the exam during the time I would have been leaving him a voicemail, as the mysterious tech case had predicted. And sure enough, when I returned to my computer 45 seconds later, Kyle was logged in and had begun his exam. Because I didn't call Kyle, my tech case tracker for this exam is empty. But if I would have called him as I normally would, it would have looked exactly how it appeared this morning before the exam took place, with just one lone tech case about leaving Kyle a voicemail. So this is an old story, but it still trips me out to think about it. So, I'd say like 5-ish years ago, I was babysitting my cousin's son. He was like 10 at the time, and she lives in our hometown that's super small and kid-friendly. She lives in a condominium complex, and her son asked if he could go outside. I was watching him and his two younger siblings, like 7 and a newborn at the time. The oldest is really good at listening to instructions, like he's a really good kid. I take note of what he's wearing because I told him to change into appropriate play clothes and that he can only play in the courtyard where I could see him from the window. Then eventually his mum comes home and asks where he is, and I tell her I let him play in the courtyard, but he's not there, at all. We start searching, yelling for him. Neighbors and other family members that live nearby come to help out. Police come and search inside her condo and in his room, and as they're about to make the call to start a literal search around town, we're talking in the courtyard at this point, and he walks out of the condo, out the front door, and he's in an entirely different outfit than what he left to play in. The cop was confused because he searched in the condo. He literally went back in to make sure there were no secret tunnels, in his words, because it just made no sense at all. I asked my cousin's son what happened and where he was, and he said, I laid down under that tree, and he points to a nearby tree in the courtyard, and then I fell asleep, and then I saw a bright light, and I woke up in my bedroom. So weird. I think about it often. Around 9 to 10 years ago, my family and I had to constantly visit my grandma in hospital due to her diabetes and trying to get a toe removed because of said diabetes. This story takes place when my father and I visited my grandmother ourselves, and as we walked down the hallway, my dad had to use the bathroom and told me to wait outside for him, and so I did. I waited for what felt like 15 minutes and then knocked on the door and asked him what was taking so long, and when the door opened, it was a blonde woman with blue scrubs who just looked at me with an expression of confusion and exasperation. I quickly felt a sense of embarrassment, and also I was surprised that my dad wasn't in the bathroom. She quickly scurried off to another hallway, and my dad came from all the way down the hall and asked me where I was this whole time, and I told him I was waiting for him outside the bathroom. But then strangely, he told me he was with my grandma in her room this whole entire time. I quickly made my way to my grandma's room and she asked me the same question, so I gave her the same answer. I still don't know exactly what happened, but it's something I think about from time to time.